So here's this condyle in its most superior position. That's supposed to be where the lateral pole is. That would be where the medial pole is. Okay? There really is two interfaces happening in this joint. This disc separates the joint into two articulations. There's the articulation of the eminence to the disc and the articulation of the condyle to the disc. They are independent of each other in what happens on either side. We'll call this the translation side of the disc. This is the rotation side of a disc. By the way, does this look weird to anybody yet? Isn't it amazing that these teeth have been in occlusion for the entire time and no one said, you're assuming temporalis are in constant contraction, right? Because that's a pathologic presentation. If someone were to say, now go into translation, pure translation, how does that occur? The lateral pterygoid, when it gets shorter, will pull that condyle forward towards the origin, which is the pterygoid plate of the sphenoid bone. It's parallel to the floor. When that muscle contracts, in absence of everything else, that mandible has to go forward. So in pure translation, if you started at the most superior position of the condyle, of the fossa, CR, when the lateral pterygoid contracts, in the absence of persisting elevation, the mandible moves forward, down and forward. You get instant posterior disclusion. That's why CR is so important in the management of parafunction. So when this coming down from CR, it doesn't have to do with mastication. It has to do with function. It has to do with the management of parafunction, because you were starting at clenched. Occlusal therapy starts with a bite. That doesn't mean rest position. It doesn't mean protruded. It means clenched. So on the rotation side, where the digastric pulls the chin down and back, the rotation side is on this side of the disc. So if someone protrudes with the lateral pterygoid only, it's a weird way to open your mouth. You need both. Now we're going to get some rotation here, and that would be if someone wanted to open their mouth wide. Both are happening at the same time. This side is sliding forward, that's the translation side, and this side is rotating. So when translation and rotation, they happen together when someone naturally attempts to open. So this was rotating the whole time. The whole mandible was moving forward, and that's happening on this side of the disc. So when we say in dentistry, well, I put them in protrusive. I mean, put them on articulator. Show me a protrusive movement on your articulator. Shouldn't protrusive mean pure translation, protruding? But when we say, show me your protrusive movement of your patient on this articulator, we do that. Don't we all think, okay, let me see your protrusive. Our front teeth are still touching when we show protrusive. How in the world are those front teeth still touching if we started at CR and we came down out of CR and the posteriors immediately discluded? Because the anterior temporalis is still contracting with enough vigor to maintain occluding. A year ago, I went to St. Petersburg to sit in on the Dr. Dawson's occlusion lecture. And he finally leaked it out that upon with immediate posterior disclusion from CR with incisal guidance, the anterior temporalis is still contracted. I thought, there it is. Dentistry is the stipulation of persistence of closure. We're trying to get as many things to disclude as we can, as soon as we can, and we're left with, if you still have incisal edge contact, that's the best you can do in an occluding event. Why? Why is it the best? Because you have minimal muscle contraction intensity. How? That's the circuitry only supports minimal muscle contraction intensity. I just say stuff different. I just explained it different, but Pete Dawson and I can't agree more. Dentistry has stipulated occluding. They call it occlusion. How best to get out of there is what this whole thing starting at CR is all about.